Usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome to the Skraby Show. I was just finishing up some last minute searching for news when I came across one of the best posts I have seen in a really long time on X. So if you're not following me, you don't need to follow me. You can just go to my account and you can see what I'm about to repost, because I think we found the actual pants that are going to be worn by Major League Baseball players. This is actually hilarious. Very, very funny. This is this whole uniform thing is actually kind of crazy. I thought at first we were starting out with just a complaining session as fans, but once you start to see these things, these jerseys, you realize real quick how ugly they are. And it's not because of what they actually look like. It's because of the material that they're using. And it's also like it looks like it's in those ironed on patches. Like I remember as a kid, my mom having to iron on some patches to my shirt. I'm not sure if they still do that, but it looks like they may have ironed on some patches onto the back of this jersey. And there's even one, I had a really funny thing that I saw earlier today that I forgot to bring up with the guys, but it's about the Major League Baseball uniforms. And actually Michael Chavez, who plays for the Mariners, he posted his jersey, and he posted the jersey on Instagram, and then it got put up on by someone on X. I'm trying to figure out who put this up, but it doesn't really matter. But anyway, here's the point of the story. Fanatics support on X wrote back, I'm assuming AI or something, wrote back to this post and said, "Hey there, it looks like we dropped the ball on this one. Send me a DM so I can learn more about this." So even Fanatics can't even like their own jerseys. So if you want to see that as well, go to Matt Skraby on X, because all of this is really funny to me. I really find it hilarious, but I don't understand why these billion-dollar companies can't figure out that these things were not going to be good. I could tell you by looking at the first one. I can't imagine being in charge of all this, seeing the first uniforms come out on the production line and looking at them being like, these are great. These are awesome. No, I can't see that at all, because no one thinks they're awesome. Even the players hate them. And I said this a couple weeks ago, and then I'll move on from the uniforms. But I said this a couple weeks ago. Players want to be in, and Tony has said this on the show, so I'm getting backed up by an actual player, former player, but he did play big league baseball. Players want major league uniforms. They don't want these lighter than air type uniforms. They want to feel like they are a big leaguer. So this uniform thing is just out of control. It's way out of control, and I can't believe it's that big of a deal right next to the season. Baseball dropped the ball on this one, and I'm hoping that they do something about it, because these are just ugly. All right, you can watch the show on YouTube if you would like. You just go to YouTube, type in 97.3 The Fan. You can also go to 973 The Fan SD on Twitter, 97.3 The Fan on Facebook, and 973 The Fan on Twitch as well. So we have it everywhere right now. Cactus Man is here. Diesel is here. Castro is here. Anthony's here. Evan, the AI bot, is here. M. McKee 23 is here. So thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Fortunately, this is my last show for the week. I am going to be watching my nieces over the next couple days. So tomorrow you're going to have Padres baseball on the air starting at noon. So make sure you tune in for that. Right after that is going to be Gwen and Chris, but no Skraby show on Thursday or Friday. I'll be back on Monday, and I will be back and ready to go for Monday. Tonight, we are going to do the news of the day here in just a second. But as I said earlier, I think people are starting to get a little burnt out on the Eric Hosmer talk. But since I am the last person on the station for the day, I didn't really get to do my Eric Hosmer talk. Not that it's going to be, well, actually, I should say it's going to be great. You could be the judge of that, actually. But I'm going to give you three perspectives. I'm going to give you the perspective as an irrational fan, because I'm one of those. I'm going to give you the perspective as a sports talk show host with this Eric Hosmer time in San Diego thing. And then I'm going to try my best through my understanding working with former pro athletes in radio. I'm going to do my best to give the professional athletes perspective on what happened with Eric Hosmer in San Diego. And then we'll move on from Eric Hosmer for all eternity. But also, last thing, we have the Daily Gripe. Adrian Peterson, yes, the football player, is auctioning off his entire wardrobe, his entire house, basically. So I'm going to go through some of these items. Some of these items are nuts, and you don't want to miss that.
It's time to get caught up on the latest with the news of the day.
Hey, thank you for listening, Wes. I'm listening on the radio. Go San Diego Sports. We're number one. Thank you very much, Wes, for listening. Annabelle says, so does this mean we have to watch Hosmer's new podcast to pass the time while you're gone? Yes. I say give it a shot. See what he's got going on. We'll talk about him in a second. But the first news story today is Eric Hosmer retires after 13 seasons, 4 gold gloves, all of that stuff. Again, we're going to get into that a little bit later. Now, the other news would be Jeff Sanders tweeted this out earlier, or X'd this out earlier, the Padres deal. So last week, the Padres acquired $750,000 in international bonus money in 2 trades, 3/4 of what they lost for signing Xander Bogaerts. And they used it to bring in Mexican right-handed pitcher Humberto Cruz. It's now official. He's coming in for $750,000. He's a top arm out of Mexico, Sanders is saying. He's 90 to 94 with an advanced slider and changeup, throws a lot of strikes. So that's the initial scouting report on Humberto Cruz. Now, here's something that I found interesting. It says he's 6'2", which is fine, but he's 170 pounds. I want to know how to throw a 94-mile-an-hour fastball and slider when I'm 170 pounds. It's incredible what these guys can do now, because back in the day, starting pitchers used to be huge. So I don't know why. So I don't know what's going on. Who is that? I think it was Robert Stock. He was here with the Padres, and I think at one point he was trying to throw 105. I don't know how he was doing. I saw him. He wasn't like an overpowering presence or anything like that. I mean, he had athletic build, but 105, he was throwing up there. He wasn't throwing 105, but he was throwing around 100, and I didn't see how he could even get that out of him. So there's your second news story of the day. Padres deal for Mexican right-handed pitcher Humberto Cruz is now official for $750,000. Now, final story of the day, and as you can tell, the news is not slow, but I'm staying away from certain stories because this one popped up right before we started, and it was MLB Network. They finally crowned their number one player right now in baseball, and I was stunned to see who they put as number 1, 2, and 3, because I've been led to believe the past couple of years that Shohei Ohtani is the best baseball player that ever played in the universe. Not even the universe. If there's something bigger than the universe, he's the best baseball player to ever play in that universe. But MLB Network ranked Ronald Acuna Jr. of the Braves number 1. They also did not rank Shohei Ohtani number 2. That would go to Mookie Betts. Also, they did not rank Shohei Ohtani number 3. They ranked Aaron Judge number 3. Number 4 is where they ranked Shohei Ohtani. And so I was looking into this a little bit because I'm like, how in the world can he be someone that is not number 1? He's just, I assumed he was going to be number 1 on this list. But the reason he's number 4 is because he's not going to pitch this year. So it's top 100 players right now. And they have him listed as a DH on the top 100 players as the number 4 player. So his DH status is what makes him number 4 player. And if so, next year when he starts pitching again, I'm sure he's going to go back to the top. I'm not mad at Ronald Acuna being at the top, because Ronald Acuna, as people who were listening last year, he was my MVP of my fantasy baseball team last year. I followed him very close last year, and it seemed like he was doing something every single night. But if you watch the highlights and you watch TV, I was seeing Shohei Ohtani doing something every single night, whether it was pitching or hitting. So this year, since he's not going to be able to hit because he has his Tommy John surgery, he's number 4 on the list. The rest of the top 10, number 5, Freddie Freeman. Number 6, Corey Seager. Rob Manfred. Number 7 is Juan Soto. And Tony and I saw him in a Yankees uniform earlier on TV. It looks weird, gotta say. I don't know that he looks great in those colors, I should say. But then again, I'm a guy who wears jeans every day. Number 8 is Yordan Alvarez from the Astros. Number 9, Garrett Cole. And number 10, Julio Rodriguez of the Mariners. So top 10, 3 Dodgers in the top 5. That's annoying. I will say that. And then I'll let it go. I'll let it go because I'm not going to worry about what the Dodgers are doing. Got to keep telling myself that out loud. All right. That's it for the news of the day. We are going to take an early break because I'm going to get into this Eric Hosmer stuff when we get back. Also, I may talk about the Diamondbacks owner because what he's doing, not a fan of, but I understand his business. So we may talk about that. But when we get back, I'm going to give you 3 perspectives on this whole Eric Hosmer thing. And that's next on the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan. All right, back here. 97.3 The Fan, The Skraby Show. I'm Matt Skraby. If you want to watch, you can go to YouTube, type in 97.3 The Fan, or you can go to @Matt Skraby or @97.3 The Fan SD. Lots of different places you could watch the show. And if you like basketball, Inside the Green Room with Danny Green is a podcast that takes you beyond the scoreboard. Join three-time NBA champion Danny Green for insight on the association that you won't hear anywhere else. Plus, get behind-the-scenes access to what life is like in the NBA. Follow Inside the Green Room with Danny Green in the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, while you're in the Odyssey app listening to that podcast, make sure you go and you follow The Skraby Show, you follow Gwen and Chris, you follow all of our shows, because then you'll get all of the news that we're putting out throughout the season. And we're going to really try, at least I'm going to really try to put out a lot more cool stuff this season. I got some ideas. I was talking to Adam about it last week. We're excited about it. Don't know how everything's going to go, but I'm at least going to attempt things. Saw this tweet, and I have to bring it up real quick before we get into the Hosmer stuff. But this is from Dave Klug. I'm not sure if it's not related to Adam Klug, but Dave says on X, my wife has been out of town since Sunday, and I ran through the thoughtful leftovers she neatly packaged in our fridge. Tonight's dinner was a Costco rotisserie chicken I ate over the kitchen sink with my bare hands, which I find hilarious because as a single guy who's not married, I eat standing up a lot, actually. I eat standing up. I eat standing in the kitchen a lot. So I don't really want to dirty things up. So I just stand there in the kitchen and I eat. Maybe one day, whenever I find that person, I will get married and I will sit down and eat. But until then, I'm going to be eating over the sink, just like this guy, Dave. That was a pretty good tweet because one of my friends, he is this guy. And I'm sure that you know people like this. But one of my friends, we don't know how he even lived life before he and his wife got married, because his wife doesn't do everything for him, but she is 100% his rock, really, for lack of a better word, because if he needs something, he knows that his wife will help him. And it's not like a taking advantage situation or anything like that. His wife likes to do things for him and he likes to not do anything. So there you go. It works for them. But he would be the guy who's eating a rotisserie chicken. And by the way, he wouldn't even go to Costco. He would probably go to like the convenience store down the street and end up eating something from one of their, like a sandwich from their fridges or whatever. But yeah, that was pretty funny. Gotta say that was pretty good. All right. The Eric Hosmer stuff. Again, I know we've been over the Eric Hosmer stuff, and this is going to be the last time that I talk about this aspect of Eric Hosmer, because you never know when it's going to come up again. I'm not going to go through his whole Padres thing ever again. Real quick though, M. McKee on the chat, married with 2 kids, and I totally eat over the sink or standing up. By the time everyone is served and it's my turn, they're done eating. That's sad. That's kind of how my mom was. My mom does this thing that I've always had a problem with, because she's the one who made dinner for us growing up, but she was always the last one to eat. And so my thoughts are, if she is going to make the dinner and do all that stuff, work the hour to get the dinner, then she should definitely be eating first. And she doesn't do the dishes, but she always eats last. And I'm like, come on, Mom. And so, anytime we're having dinner together, I make sure she eats first, because for all of my life, she's been eating the leftovers of everyone. Okay, I'm going to get into it now. I'm going to try and give 3 different points of view on this whole media and sports thing. I'm going to give the irrational fan view. I'm going to give the sports talk host view, and I'm going to try and give you the player's perspective from how I see it and understand it. So Eric Hosmer, a very polarizing character here in San Diego. You don't just feel whatever about him. You love him or you hate him. And as a guy who, I'm not going to hide behind this, I defended Eric Hosmer, the player, for a while, because I thought he was taking unnecessary heat. And as his time with the Padres went along, I realized maybe I was on the wrong side of things. But I was always going to be an Eric Hosmer defender because I do think that he did some great things for this organization. And I will say this till the end of time, and people are going to disagree with me until the end of time. But Manny Machado is a San Diego Padre, 99.9% in my head, at least, 99.9% because of Eric Hosmer and their friendship. I don't think Manny comes here if Eric Hosmer doesn't come here. But Eric Hosmer, he was really good. Let me start it like this. As the irrational fan, I did want to yell and I did want to make fun of everything. And I did want to make fun of what he had said in the past. And part of me thinks this is all a ploy just to get back at Padres fans. And this is how he can go and he can have a platform to, I guess, say all of his truths and say what he's thinking about what happened. But I listened to this podcast. I clicked through it, but I listened to most of it. And I listened to some of the clips that we've had for the station. And here's the one that I think is a little bit maybe mischaracterized, but here is the one part of his podcast, Eric Hosmer's podcast, that I wanted to play.
You know, when I went to San Diego, I'll be the first to admit the performance wasn't what I wanted it to be, wasn't what I envisioned it to be. But at the same time, you know, some of the stuff that was being written or some of the stuff that I read or people had tell me was, you know, I wasn't doing that due diligence in the locker room. I was actually doing the opposite, pulling people apart. And that's something to me where I felt like I was on an island right there. Like I want to tell my story. I want to be able to tell people what's going on here, what's really happening, but I just didn't have that platform. And I feel like baseball players in general don't have that platform.
And they, in my opinion, as an irrational fan, I don't care about your platform. I really don't. I just want you to go out there. I want you to play. I want you to produce. I want you to do what you were brought into town to do. And he didn't do that. And do I think that some of those plays at first base where he kind of went into foul territory and tried to make the play that way, do I think that was good stuff? When it worked out, it was, but it didn't work out all the time. And there were plenty of different things as a fan to be angry at Eric Hosmer about. And I think it's fair if you're looking at him and what he was making, and he acknowledges this in the podcast, but he said, I didn't live up to my contract, which I think is pretty big of him to say, but it's true. So how can he not say the truth? And Eric Hosmer, I think from an irrational fan perspective, is someone who maybe didn't respect the Padres fans and the Padres organization enough, because there were a lot of different interactions with fans. There was interactions with the media. I know near the end there was one where someone was asking Eric Hosmer some questions and he kind of just walked off. So there wasn't the best relationship there. And that's from the irrational fan perspective. Not happy with that. Not a fan of that. I want to see him just play baseball. That's really all I want to see. Then I have the sports talk show host side. I need to see all sides of this. And I do understand why Eric Hosmer feels this way. So when I'm thinking about something to talk about, I think about the way that immediately comes to me, my first initial feelings of things, and then I think about the other side. And so as a sports talk show host, I agree that Eric Hosmer may have been treated somewhat unfairly here in San Diego if we're talking about it from the sports talk show host perspective. Again, as a fan, he didn't live up to his contract. But there is something about it that I need to acknowledge, that this is a hard thing that happened with him being traded to the Red Sox. It's not easy. In the podcast, he talks about how his wife was 6 or 7 months pregnant and they needed to fly to Boston because he was on the Red Sox now. And so he went to Boston. They needed to find a place to live. They needed to find a new doctor. They needed to find a new hospital to deliver their baby at. I find that to be something that I can't overlook. At this point in my life, I know that there are certain things that are stressful, and that I've never been through the baby thing, but I can imagine that being extremely stressful. Now, as a sports talk show host also, I'm thinking of him saying that he didn't have the platform for that and he didn't have a way to speak his mind. But that's in my mind, not necessarily true, because we did invite him on the show many times, and he did come on the show. But as his time with San Diego was going on, there was less and less visits from Eric Hosmer. And so he kind of shut himself off to the media. And as a sports talk show host, I think that's the wrong move. I think you have to address things, get the elephant out of the room. And he didn't do that. He kind of just allowed it to go the way it did, and there were no answers for anything. And even when he was asked in the media about whether or not he was willing to do things with his swing or defensively, and he answered in a sort of way where he was like, well, I've been doing it this way for this long, so why am I going to change it? And as a sports talk show host, I kind of understand with him on his points, but I also think that when your numbers aren't proving that you're still doing the things that you used to do, then you have to kind of take a step back and look at things. And he didn't do that either. He didn't do that until actually he said he was the season before the Cubs. So this 2 off seasons ago, he said he needed to get in the best shape of his life, and he needed to go and he needed to work on his swing. To me, that's a little too late. You're working on your swing in the last year of your career. So I'm not sure really what was accomplished there. And I can't really defend him on that one. Now, the last and final part would be the perspective as a professional athlete. And I've seen this because I've worked with professional athletes, and I've seen it kind of around the Padres clubhouse, but these guys do see things. These guys do hear things. These guys do, I guess, get defensive about things. And I don't blame anyone for getting defensive, because whenever I see a tweet about our show being terrible, or someone wanting to replace me, or someone wanting to replace Chris or Tony or whatever, take us off the air, it does, as Tony would say, make me feel some type of way. And because it's like the things that some people say are just not true. And I want to scream from the rooftops, that's not true, what you are saying about our show, or what you're saying about one of the members of our show. And he was kind of stuck in that situation here in San Diego. So he heard a lot of things about him being divisive. I honestly don't remember those comments about him being divisive in the clubhouse. I really don't. And I remember those things. I do remember last year us talking quite a bit about what happened in the clubhouse with, the Kevin Acee article, Manny Machado, teammates coming to him, all that stuff. And it's as a player, I think you want people to know that what they're saying about you isn't true, but it's really, really difficult to actually make people believe that what you're saying isn't true. And so that's, as a professional athlete, is where they're caught between a rock and a hard place, because they can go scorched earth and call people out on social media, but then the narrative ends up being, well, he's lashing out on social media, or he doesn't like the fans. He's going back at the fans. And so I feel like as a professional athlete, there's no real good way to defend yourself. And it's only a natural emotion to want to defend yourself. Like I said, whenever I see things that happen whenever I see things on Twitter, I want to go and reply every single time, but I have the restraint now to not reply because I've made those mistakes. But I'm also learning from my errors. I'm learning from things that have happened over time. And I don't feel like that really happened with Eric Hosmer. I don't feel like there was a change there. So there you go. I mean, I hope I did an okay job of breaking that down. But I do think that now that I am, as I talked about last night, there's 2 parts of my life: before drinking, after drinking. And the after drinking, and if you're just tuning in now, I'm a recovering alcoholic. That's why I say after drinking. But I think that as a recovering alcoholic, I'm more compassionate for people now. And I try to think into certain way, or try to think a different way than other people think, because everybody's lives are really difficult, no matter how much money you make. And I honestly think the more money you make, the more difficult things are. And so I am taking that, I guess, tact now, and it's going to be through understanding instead of blaming for things. So there you go. That's it on my rant of Eric Hosmer. Let me look through the chat to see if there's anything on. Okay, here's Johnny. Don't give him credit for saying he didn't live up to his contract now. The dude has his money. It would have been notable if he said that during his tenure and did something about it. I mean, no one's going to say that during his tenure. Maybe he didn't realize it, but I can slightly understand. Flanders, nice name. Is this Ned Flanders? Haas was rude to the media at times. I understand he was frustrated, but not really appealing to the fan base. I can't say that Eric Hosmer was rude to me, or our show. So I can't speak on that. Some media sometimes deserve it. I'm just going to be honest. You ask a dumb question, what do they say? You play stupid games, you get stupid prizes. So you ask a question that's going to set someone off. Don't be surprised that they're going to be set off by your question. Diesel says, I'm sorry, but he doesn't get my pity. He has more money than he knows what to do with. Boo-hoo, cry me a river. You're a professional. Act like it. I don't necessarily think just because he has his money means that he is open to constant trashing. McKee says, I remember him not being able to catch a fly ball at first. That did happen. Anthony said, I don't remember specific divisive comments, but I do remember him saying he doesn't need to practice or something. See, you're kind of channeling the inner Matt Skraby there, and you said, or something, meaning we don't really have the full quote there. Dan says, what would happen if you told your boss I didn't give 100% this year? You would get the boot as fast as they could replace you. I don't think that's necessarily true, Dan. I don't. What are the reasons as to why I didn't give 100% this year? And I don't necessarily know that the team's going to kick him off for that. And I don't necessarily know that he was loafing it. Let's see. Johnny says, I'm a Sith Lord. Iris is 17 years sober. Nice job. Anthony says, mo money, mo problems from Notorious B.I.G. Cactus Man says, going on 6 years of sobriety, Skraby. It's not easy, but keep going. Same to you. Anthony, okay, this is funny. Haas let the man bun get to his head. That's a good one. Annabelle says, I bet Hosmer still doesn't actually think he was bad. I think he's, I don't know. I think he does. He realized, he retired. He said he's at peace with it, meaning that he's not good anymore. And he realizes that he's not good anymore. All right. Thank you to everybody for allowing me to get that off my chest. Thank you to everybody for, being a part of the chat. When we get back, we are going to talk about some of the items that are in Adrian Peterson's auction. And you can go to this website. I guess I can tweet this out or exit out. I still can't figure out what to say there. But I'm going to put this out there. You can go through some of his items. And I got to say, some of these items are weird. And I don't know what he's doing selling these items. So we'll go over those when we get back on the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan. final segment of the week for me. As I said, I will be off the next couple days. We'll be back with you on Monday. I'm not really a guy who dances, but I don't know why. But every time I hear the music, I start dancing on the camera. If you don't see that and you see some guy just wiggling around in his chair, it's me trying to dance. It's not. I'm okay. I don't have a medical emergency happening. I have me dancing. All right, we'll get into the Adrian Peterson auction in just a second, but I just realized that we did not play this during Gwen and Chris, and I really want to share it with everyone because Sammy Lev does such great work, but he went out and he had a stand-up one-on-one interview with Jake Cronenworth. He also had a one-on-one interview with Xander Bogaerts, so go to 97.3 The Fan SD on X if you would like to see that. But here, we played a little bit earlier of the conversation between Sam and Jake Cronenworth and talking about how Jake Cronenworth knows how important it would be to San Diego to win a championship. But here is Sammy Lev asking him about his mentality this past offseason.
Obviously, last season, you described it earlier this spring, not exactly what you wanted, and it was an interesting year for you. You signed the new contract, had the season. You also moved over to first base. When you look back on it now, you've had some time to reflect, I'm sure. How do you sum up last year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some disappointment in there, but also a learning experience. This game's not easy, and anytime you can learn, obviously you don't want to learn through the hard parts,
right.
But that's part of it. And like I said, going into the off season, after coming off the wrist injury, but that last month and a half, 2 months really turned it around and kind of started playing the way I could play, and just learning and trying to grow as a player and a leader on the team, and coming into spring training with the mindset and a goal in mind.
First time we heard from you this spring, you used the word vulnerable, which I thought was a really interesting word. Can you dive into that mindset you took into the off season of being quote unquote vulnerable?
Yeah. It's, you want to put yourself in a situation to learn. And sometimes you need to take your guard down and, leave your ego at the door and go and, just try to take in as much knowledge about yourself and about what other players do really well and try to apply it to yourself and kind of that word, be vulnerable in those situations, right. And, have the ability to learn and grow and get better.
I hope he can. I hope he gets back to the form that we saw Jake Cronenworth in I guess, 2020, 2021. He needs to. He really needs to turn it around. And I see on the chat, Jack says, I will always root for Jake. And so will I, because he has a very similar story to some of us where, we kind of have to work our way up. We're not the ones that people are talking about all the time, like, say, the Juan Soto or the Jackson Merrills or people like that. Jake Cronenworth had to find his way with the Padres. And if they didn't get him in that trade with the Rays, I mean, that's a piece of the team that's missing. So they really did hit on that. And Jake Cronenworth came in on fire whenever Eric Hosmer had to sit. Another reason Eric Hosmer is good for San Diego, he gave Jake Cronenworth the opportunity to play first base while Eric Hosmer is out with illness or whatever it was. So good on Jake Cronenworth for doing the deep dive in the offseason on himself and doing the deep dive into his vulnerability, because I really do think that this means something. I think he knows how big of a season this is for him coming up. And you can hear it in his voice. You can hear it how he says things. You can hear it how he talks about the upcoming year. You just know that he is ready for a great year. And whether or not he's going to put together that great year is yet to be seen. But I do think that I like what I'm hearing from him right now. And not to mention, spring training has been very, what's the word? I guess this is not a word, non-news making. Last year, we talked about all these bad things in spring training. But this year, we're not talking about any bad things, knock on wood. And I really think that Jake Cronenworth has what it takes to turn it around. I just saw this on the chat. Terry, hi, Skraby, listening to you while traveling in Alice Springs, Australia. That is very, very cool. Thank you very much, Terry, for listening from Australia. That's really cool. I want to go to Australia one day. I know Tony's been there. I've traveled to a bunch of different places. I guess I've been to London for 4 times maybe. And the reason I've been to all these places is because I used to work for a company that would fly me around everywhere. And it sounds great, but it wasn't as great as the description tells you. But I went to London 4 times. I've been to Ireland. I've been to Italy. I've been to Germany. I've been to Switzerland. And I went to Zermatt where the Matterhorn was. And the day that we went up to see the actual Matterhorn, like the real Matterhorn, we went up to the top. We got to the place, the overlook, the viewpoint, and it was cloudy. We couldn't see the Matterhorn. So I still have yet to see the actual Matterhorn because it was covered in clouds. But thank you for listening, Terry, from Australia. That is awesome. And I am the dork that's going to go to Alice Springs in the Google once the show's over to find out where Alice Springs is. I don't know if anybody watches these shows on Netflix, but some of them are from Australia. I love Australian TV shows. I don't know why, but I do love Australian TV shows. And there's one, I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but it's called Glitch. And that's an Australian TV show. And then I was just watching one recently. Oh, The Tourist on Netflix. That is also in Australia. So I don't know why Australia makes good TV shows, but they do. They really, really do. I'm going to go to Australia one day. I promise you. I don't know why I'm promising you, but I promise you. All right. You know, I am. Oh, I see that I had a couple people reach out about the Eric Hosmer stuff. I also got a couple people to reach out about the app. Oh, and I see Terry on my Twitter as well. So there you go. Sorry, I'm doing this all live on the air. All right. Now we go to Adrian Peterson's auction. Now, you can search this. I also put it on my X if you would like to see everything. But there are hundreds of items. Hundreds of items. Like, I'm not even kidding. You got helmets. You got replica flintlock pistols. You have swords. You have gloves. You've got jerseys. You've got workout shirts. You've got shoes. You even have a robe. Yes, Adrian Peterson is selling a robe. Now, I do find this very sad because the reason that he's selling all this stuff is because he needs money and he needs to pay his debts. And that's what I've been seeing. So that's why he's doing that. But I find this very sad for a couple reasons because Adrian Peterson made over $100 million in the NFL. And I don't know his exact situation, so I'm not going to say that he just ran through money. Maybe he got mixed up with the wrong people and they stole some of his money. I really don't know where his money went, but I think that whenever you get to this situation with an athlete that has been great in their career and made a lot of money and did things that we still talk about today, when you see him on these types of lists, you see them on the I have to auction all my stuff off list, or you see them doing random appearances and they are only getting paid like $50 to $100 or whatever it is. But this does make me sad because this guy is selling basically his entire life to try and I guess make a dent in his debts. I'm not sure what his debt is, but he's got golf balls on here. He just has everything. And some of these things are not even being bid on for that much money. I know he's even selling like rookie of the year, or not rookie of the year. He's selling trophies. Let me look and see if I can find a trophy real quick to see how much that's going for right now. Cause I feel like that's actually going to go somewhere. But when Adrian Peterson, when players have to sell their prized possessions, like their championship rings or their different awards, you're in a pretty bad spot. And I feel like those awards and those championship rings really only mean a lot to one person, and that would be the person that owns it. So it's just sad to me when they feel like they need to go ahead and sell things to try to make good on their debts. But I put this up on X if you really want to see what he's selling, and there is just so much going on. And maybe you can even bid on some stuff yourself. Like here is a football from the NFL. Somehow he has a football. It's only $5. So maybe you can go bid on it $5. Let's go back to the chat real quick and see what's going on, because every time I kind of look into the corner of my eye, I see things happening. I'm reading just to make sure it's radio appropriate. Hi, Iglesias said, anyway, if you can hear this, I'm just chiming in on Hosmer. I wish he would have done more for the community. He just turned people off with that aloofness. And yes, that is a word. I definitely know aloofness is a word. But the community thing, I can't speak to. Will wasn't good late for us, but we all love him because he engaged us. I know that's not a requirement, but it certainly is an easy fix in my humble opinion. I do understand why Will was loved. I don't know. Where do I want to go with this? I don't know that Eric Hosmer. I really don't know if it was in his best interest to take people out and buy them drinks and bars and all that stuff. Like, that is. I just don't know that would be a good place for him. I don't know that it would be a place for him that he would thrive in. And I can understand there was a little bit of standoffness. Like, you just kind of knew there was a barrier. Like certain players, Will Myers, for example, there's no barrier. You could walk up to Will and say, hi, I'm a Padres fan. He would take a picture, maybe even buy you some Chick-fil-A or something like that. Trying to think, like Jake Cronenworth, same thing. I even feel that way about Manny Machado. I feel like Manny Machado, you could walk up to him anywhere and say, hey, I'm a Padres fan, and he would be very nice to you. But I do agree that there was some standoffishness, and that is a word as well. I just made it up. And there could have been a little bit more in that way of connecting with the fans. Just like we kind of talked about with Josh Hader and how he didn't really connect with the fans. I didn't feel like Josh Hader, I don't really feel like he opened himself up to San Diego because he knew there was a really good chance of him leaving San Diego very soon. So I think that there is a similar feel to those two guys, and that is that there's some sort of barrier between the fan and the player, and not everyone's like that, but a lot of guys are like that, and we're lucky that we have some in San Diego that aren't like that.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
All right, I got a question. What's your favorite Girl Scout cookie, Skraby? It's funny you asked this question because I was eating a Girl Scout cookie last night, and it wasn't the one I like. I'm not going to say Samoa's. I really like the lemon ones. I do. I don't know what they're called, but I love the lemon ones. Love the lemon ones. So those are my favorite Girl Scout cookies. If you have any favorites, let me know. All right, my daily gripe for tonight is something I tend to be very hard on myself. I tend to be overly critical of myself. But this morning, I completely made a mistake on an appointment that I had, and I ended up having to pay a late fee. Not a late fee, a no-show fee. And this is my gripe because I'm very good at remembering things, especially if it's an appointment that I'm going to have to pay for, if I'm going to have to pay for a fee. But yes, I missed it this morning. They called me and they said, hey, where are you? I said, I don't know. I'm somewhere. Just charge me. So that was my daily gripe. Also, you know what? Famous all day. Ill Day. I don't know what your name is, but I'm going to say famous. Said, I thought the Girl Scouts were the daily gripe. I will say this. People, here's another daily gripe for everybody. And then I'm going to head off into my weekend. I'm going to miss you all. I'll be back on Monday. I can't stand it when there are people outside of grocery stores you have to walk by in order to get into the store. Not for me. I will avoid a store at all costs if there's someone in front of it. I will even walk 1.5 miles around the building in order to not have to see those people in front of the stores. Thank you to everybody for listening. Double daily gripe. That's right. Thank you to Maria. I know she's not here, but she's taking the test. Emma Key 23. All of you. See you on Monday.
Rays, Dodgers.
0-2. Swing and a